Hello again, everybody, and welcome to the Saints Insider Podcast. Wednesday, June the 18th, kind of the last show before we all start leaving town. Jeff Duncan already left town. He beat us out. He did make it back, by the way. Did not get stuck in a Sicilian volcano.
Well, good for him.
At least that's what I haven't seen him with my own eyes, but that's what I heard as he made it back.
He's at the Saints Hall of Fame, so I think he's here.
Yeah, he's here.
He tweeted
We hope he's here. But the rest of us are all heading out of town over the next couple of weeks, but we will have shows for you every week. Before we leave, we wanted to do a 53-man roster projection. So that's what we're going to do today. End of the offseason, kind of the break between the offseason and training camp. As we mentioned last week, the Saints could still make more moves. I mean, there's still some money they could spend. But for the most part, we know what they're going to have. Matt, and you put together a 53-man roster projection that you can find at NOLA.com/Saints. That's what we're going to be working off of, but kind of the rest of us may ask you questions or disagree with you at points.
Call me an idiot. Yeah, that's fine.
I will. Let's go.
There are a couple positions that I had a real tough time with, but right now I felt pretty good about it. I think training camp will provide a lot of clarity, obviously, of how these competitions will go. But as I was going through this, there were a couple of guys that I thought were maybe in more danger, but then when I took a step back to think about it, there hadn't been like a clear cutoff line yet. So I think the bubble guys are really interesting, but I tended to be a little bit more conservative with who I left on the roster right now. But I'm pretty open to changing my mind in training camp if things don't go right.
Yeah, I mean, things are going to change for sure.
Nobody saw Mason Tipton making the roster last year this time, so.
Yeah, and there's guys out there like that who I mean, I don't. It's gonna. The other thing will be interesting, and I think the overarching thought here, Rod, is like this roster is so unsettled compared to previous years. I mean, there's still 30 guys we know are going to make it, but like the bubble is a lot bigger.
Yeah, I think it's probably bigger, but I think when I went through the exercise and did it, like it was probably like 3 or 4 guys I think it came down to at the end. I thought it seemed pretty solid to me for me, but yeah, I don't know how
you may have more confidence in some guys than I do.
Yeah, I think that might be the case.
I think one of the really fascinating things about this is that it's a new regime.
That too.
So they are not tied. They're not tied to guys who have been high draft picks who haven't panned out so far.
Right.
Or relatively high draft picks. Like, for instance, like I'm not saying this is going to happen, but like there's nothing tying this organization to Jake Haener anymore, right?
Right.
Last year, it was like a virtual impossibility that he was going to be cut, even after they drafted Spencer Rattler. Like, if he goes out there and doesn't perform in training camp, or if they really like Hunter Deckers, you know, would it be a massive surprise if they don't keep Jake Haener? No. Would it be a surprise if they don't keep Isaiah Foskey? No. Kendra Miller? No.
Jordan Howden.
Jordan Howden. Even though Jordan Howden's been taking some reps of the ones, I don't think you can be like, yeah, he's definitely going to be on this roster.
Kendra Miller, did you say Kendra?
Yeah. You know, it's just. And Howden was a 5th round draft pick. Like it's not quite the same degree with him, but you know, I just think that there's less security for some of those guys who were not drafted under this coaching staff than there was in previous regime.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's no doubt there's going to be. We always talk about who the surprise cuts will be. There will be some that seem like surprises just because of where they were drafted, but
and I think
that was then. This is now.
The same thing goes for veteran players. I think. Guys who were signed under the previous regime or to fit a previous system. Like, I think it's a good thing that Cedric Wilson has played with Kellen Moore before, you know, but like he was signed to play in the Kubiak offense. You know, I don't know if he's necessarily like a super safe bet to make the right. Like, I think there's a little bit more variance when you add in a new coaching staff with a new scheme that wants to play a certain way, and they're adapting an old roster to that.
Yeah, as we do this, maybe we should we have the number of players at that position, but then we should talk about how many spots within that group are actually up for grabs. That's
I agree.
How I thought about it.
And who maybe of the players you listed as on the roster, Matt, who's the most likely to not be, and then who of the players you didn't list would fill in for that guy. So let's go through position by position. We are going to start with the quarterbacks. We've talked ad nauseum about this quarterback competition. I think Rattler and Shuck are going to make the team. The third one is almost definitely Jake Haener, but like you said, Luke, like we don't know that for sure, and it's not like you couldn't sneak Jake Haener onto a practice squad.
Yeah, like For the record, I still do think Jake Haener is on the roster, on September 9th or whenever they open the season. I do think that there is some like a possibility for this to get a little weird at some spots here. Look, he's a guy I think he's been really impressive in the practices. I know he's really good in the meetings. He's a really, really sharp player, but like he just hasn't shown it on the field. So like, if he doesn't pop during this training camp, and if they really think they have something in Deckers, maybe they'd rather keep him as the third quarterback, the emergency third quarterback. Maybe they don't keep three quarterbacks at all. I think that'd be a little strange given the fact that they don't have like really any experience on the roster at the position. But like, I just do think that there's an avenue for this to get a little funky at that position specifically this offseason.
I did put Haener on mine, but I thought about it for like a while. Like I was kind of going back and forth on that third spot. So, and like Luke said, I think it just kind of comes down to how he does in training camp. But I do see a way that he does not make this team.
Do you think he does get first team reps? From the beginning, Kellen Moore said he's part of this conversation, but like I don't know, it's getting harder and harder to believe that as the summer's gone on. He's obviously missing time at the oblique.
Yeah, I think with these quarterbacks being so young, with a rookie and a second year guy, like I don't know if you really have room to squeeze in the first team reps in with.
Exactly. Every first team rep you give Jake Haener is
taking away from somebody
you're
else,
taking it away from Shuck or Rattler. So I don't see that. I will say keeping three quarterbacks, Matt, like they could just keep two active. Either Haener or Deckers, you're going to be able to get through on the practice squad. You could elevate them if needed later in the season. You could just keep two on the 53.
Yeah, you can manipulate it. You could have made the same argument last year. I think teams are a little bit more cautious these days about wanting to keep three. The trend for a long time was two, but we've seen so many quarterback injuries the last few years here. But you think about that Brock Purdy NFC Championship game against the Eagles a few years ago. Like, I feel like teams are taking a little bit more of a cautious approach. They're more comfortable with having three on the roster, and so I think that kind of swayed it for me. But I also do think Haener's going to get first team reps. By the way, it might come at the end of. All right, we've done our 11 on 11s, and here are two spare reps. Get in there, kid. But I think we'll at least see him a little bit.
I think Kellen Moore will give lip service to the idea that he's, at least early in camp, that he's in the competition. So, okay, moving on to running back. The only name here that's set in stone is Alvin Kamara. Devin Neal is a rookie. They spent a draft pick on him. You figure he'll make the team. That brings us to Kendra Miller, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Cam Akers. Like, I don't know who... It's going to be one of the most fascinating battles in camp is who backs up AK.
Yeah, and like for the record, like we did not basically get to see anything of value in the offseason program with OTAs and the minicamp. Was seeing what these guys could do in the run game specifically. Basically, what they were limited to do in front of our eyes was position drills and like a little bit of stuff catching the ball out of the backfield in 7-on-7s.
Walk through running. Yeah,
so like. I have such a bad read on this right now. It's really just like, okay, can they get the light bulb to click on for Kendra Miller? Like, can Devin Neal become like the latest day 3 pick to find some success in the NFL? There's been 3 guys in the last 3 years who were day 3 picks who ran for 1,000 yards. I think it was Kyron Williams, Tyler Algier, and Bucky Irving. And then what's the kid from Cincinnati, Chase Brown? Yeah, Illinois kid. He ran for 990 last year. So like, it's definitely possible, but like it's not like a given, but I need to see it in like some contact drills. I need to see it like actually go at something close to full speed in these practices before I can really say like that guy's got it or that guy doesn't.
With them not having a fullback now, did you all both go with 4 running backs, or you just went with 3? Because I went with 4.
I went for 4 tight ends. I think Jack Stoll would be the.
So you did 3 running backs though?
I did 4 running backs as well.
Okay.
I went. Well, see you later.
Yeah, Matt had Clyde as his 4th. I'm looking at your list right now. You've got Cam as your 4th.
Surprise,
Homer.
Right?
Well, I guess the question is this: like,
I don't know if you even need. That's for like.
Well, what do you need the 4th for?
Right.
Well, Kendra Miller can't stay healthy. That's point number 1. Devin Neal, you don't know what you have. So maybe you need... Did you put 4, Matt, just because you couldn't decide who to cut, or what was your thought process?
I put 4. I was going to cut Kendra Miller, and he was the one I was specifically thinking about where I was like, well, have I really seen enough to cut him? No, but I think he's on real thin ice. That's just more of a gut feel based on how last year unfolded, how we've seen in OTAs where he was working with like some of the backups. And I just think he really has to prove it. And then as for 4, teams keep 4 from time to time. You'll have like you'll have 1 inactive, but teams will keep 3 running backs up, 1 to play special teams. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, maybe he's more of the pass protection receiving back option, if not just the straight runner. It feels like there's room for him to make the roster, but it could be 3, it could be 4, it could be Xavier Valade has popped here and there. People have just not stopped asking me about Marcus Yarns, so I will be paying more attention to him come training camp. Yeah, it's just a real open position.
And one guy I want to kind of throw on here is somebody just to keep an eye on for this sort of thing where you're talking about specific roles somebody can play is Velus Jones.
Right.
Who could be on the roster essentially as like a JT Gray type, where he's a running back who's on the roster and he's active on game day, but he's like their return man and he's offering some coverage stuff on special teams. But like that's I think kind of a long shot in my opinion at this point.
So who's your 4th guy?
I don't know if I'm going to go for. I think if I were like building this out right now, I would probably keep 3, and it would be AK obviously, and then Kendra and Devin Neal.
Kendra Miller seems simultaneously like the most likely guy to possibly be cut off this list, and also the most likely guy to be the number 2
boomer bust.
The guy clearly behind Kamara.
Boomer bust. I just wrote a running back preview yesterday. It should be publishing next month, but like he's like the guy you could see on this team running for 800 yards, or also the guy who's on like the Chiefs practice squad.
Right.
It's not going to be the Bears.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
That would be the most hilarious choice. Kendra Miller, Dennis Allen reunited, and it feels so good. Okay. Wide receivers. You kept 6, Matt. You got, Olave, Shaheed, Cooks. Those guys are locked in. I think Bub Means is pretty close to locked in. You filled it out with Cedric Wilson and Dante Pettis. Any overarching thoughts there? Who was on the bubble for you?
I needed a returner there. That was the Dante Pettis inclusion. And, you look up every once in a while. I know there's Dante Pettis catching another pass. Like, he's pretty involved in the mix here. I think there's room for him to make it. Cedric Wilson, the familiarity with Kellen Moore, as Luke mentioned, I think gives him a slight edge. And then Bub Means, I think, has had a really impressive offseason. Looks like he's already really positioned to take kind of that step. And so I kept 6, but it's pretty up for grabs. I mean, if you told me they added to this position and a 6th guy who's not on the roster currently makes the team, like, it wouldn't shock me.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of feel the same. Like, I think I would have the same as you. I would probably keep 6 receivers instead of 4 running backs, personally.
Matt did both.
I did both.
Yeah.
But I'm light elsewhere, which I think I might be wrong about.
Well, I just think that both Pettis and Wilson have some familiarity with Kellen Moore. Wilson at least gives them something they don't have with the top 3, and that's like at least some physicality. I think he's a good run blocking player, a receiver. Kellen Moore played college ball with Dante Pettis' cousin. Like, there's familiarity with that family too. And like you said, he was a guy who was like a pretty high draft pick when he was coming out. Had some nice seasons, and then he battled injuries for a couple of years. But like, I think there might be more there than what we saw last year, which is really like his first time playing in like 2 years. So, that could be totally wrong, and it might not really even matter. We're talking about like the 5th, 6th receiver on the team, but like, I think that like if I were ranking it, that's probably exactly how I would go, and I would probably also keep 6 as well.
I had the same 5, except I had Donovan Peoples-Jones instead of Pettis as the last one, but I do think that's going to be one of the position battles, going for that last spot those last 2 spots, I guess, toward the bottom. But I think the first 3 are pretty much locked in. I think Bud Means is probably locked in, so I think you probably got 2 slots left.
Yeah, and if the Saints should go sign somebody here,
Yeah.
who's on the chopping block then? Cedric Wilson, in addition to?
I mean, probably. Like, if they're going to sign somebody, it's going to be somebody in that mold, right?
Right.
So, and while Cedric Wilson had some success with Kellen Moore, that was, 4 years ago?
You just can't live. Oh, I know that guy, so I can't cut him. Like, that's just not the way an NFL coach can operate.
No, not even close.
But that's how they work.
Well, and like you think about last year, look, Chris Olave, who played in 8 games, who played in less than half the season, and in those 8 games, he left 2 of them before he played 10 snaps. He led all receivers in receiving yards on this team last year. And we're talking about bringing basically the same unit back plus Brandon Cooks. So, like, I don't think any of these guys are necessarily safe, even if they like make the 53. Like, I think there's just definitely some chance this room sees some turnover, get some players added to it, even though they basically haven't added to it throughout the offseason.
How many? So Olave led the league, or led the team with led the receivers with 400.
That's this year that he's going to lead the league.
Yeah. Led it with
he had
400.
400 yards in 8 games, and 2 of those games he left very early. Like,
how
in the first
many
quarter.
receivers? I guess you can include the tight ends in there. How many people top 400 this year for them?
Okay, well, so Juwan Johnson led the
did,
team
yeah.
in receiving last year.
And
So
Alvin did
Juwan
too,
and
right?
Alvin both topped 400 last year. I think they'll do it again this year. Shahid and Olave, I think, will top it. And I think Cooks will top it. So I think 5 total.
Yeah.
But do any of
But I
those
think
top,
Cooks- I think Cooks would be at like
yeah.
500-600 yards. Like, I think maxing out for him. Because I do think that they're just considering what this offense is with a young quarterback in there. I think they are going to lean heavily on the ground attack. So, like, would I be surprised if both Olave and Shahid topped 1,000 yards if they stayed healthy? No.
We're totally off topic, but how many passing yards over under for the Saints this year?
Like 3,400.
I was going to say 35, but setting 35 maybe, 32.
Because if Olave and Shahid both threaten 1,000 yards and you got 3 other guys at 400, well, you're at 3,200 right there before you even throw in all the sort of, odds and ends, backup tight ends. And
Yeah, well, but I don't think you can count on Olave and Shahid to both stay
That's
healthy.
true.
So, like, in the ideal scenario, like, I think you could pass for 3,900 yards in this offense. But, like, I don't think you can, like, absolutely bank on the ideal scenario happening.
I also think if things go according to plan, the Saints want to run. They may also be spending a lot of fourth quarters needing to pass. If you're down 10 points entering the fourth quarter every week, you can throw a lot of passes. So I don't know. Interesting question.
And like, you might want to run, but like, you're still like, even teams who want to run the ball and run it a lot still probably have more than a 50-50 split passing the football.
Right.
Yeah, Derek Carr's high here was 3,878.
And that was a season where he missed chunks of 3 games.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jameis probably had 300 or 400
What was the
that year.
team total that
Yeah.
year?
It was only on his game.
We're doing this live.
Okay, come on, load. 3,900. Almost 4,000.
Yeah.
3,990.
So that we'll see. I think there's only so many passes to go around in this offense, but it is an interesting question, kind of who fills out the roster. All right, we're at 13 players, at least on Matt's list, 3 quarterbacks, 4 running backs, 6 receivers. Moving on to the O-line, this is where you kind of made up a spot probably. I think a lot of teams would pick 9 offensive linemen. You've only got 8, Matt.
Yeah, I feel good about like the starters. I feel good about the first 3 depth spots.
And just to because it's not on the screen, you have the starters: Kelvin Banks, Trevor Penning, Eric McCoy, Cesar Ruiz, Tali Fuaga, and then the 3 backups you chose were Dylan Radins, Will Clapp, and Landon Young. Kind of a couple of backup interior guys and a swing tackle.
Yeah. Nick Saldiveri was the one that I was like going back and forth on whether I should keep for a 9.
Another one of those guys who has no ties to the current regime.
Yeah, and he's hurt all the time. That's why I left him off. Like, this is to me is a position that, as much as they emphasize like we need offensive line depth, like you have a 16-man practice squad. Fill it with offensive linemen. Like, that's I think like that's the spot where you can maybe manipulate the most if you need that flexibility. And they probably will go more than 8, but right now, with just how I looked at it, there wasn't anyone like, oh my God, I have to have him on to be my 9th or even 10th guy. We've seen that. I just went a little lighter there, but I'm prepared to be wrong.
Saldivari is the next guy, right?
Yeah, I'd keep 9 with Saldivari. But like
So you go through running
Matt's,
backs. Yeah.
to Matt's point, I think that I think it's totally possible he doesn't make the roster. And, and we'll also see what some of these guys look like once the pads come on. Like, I don't know, maybe
Simpkins or
or like, Josiah Zerum, their 7th round pick from last year, who spent all last year on the practice squad. Maybe he made a big jump after spending a year basically as red shirt coming out of a small school. He had like traits and size and all that stuff. Like maybe they can coach him up and they like what he like. There's a number of different routes this can go, but I do think that those first 3 guys after the starting 5 are probably the ones I'd feel most comfortable with. Radens can give you left and right guard. Clapp can give you guard center. Landon Young can give you 4 positions if you need it. So that's probably where I would go to.
Yeah, for me,
versatility's big.
Saldivari was probably like the 5th or 4th guy for me, and I just kind of ended up adding that 4th running back. But if I hadn't had that 4th running back, he'd have been my guy.
So you also had 8 on the O-line?
Yeah. And I probably should, not thinking about it now, he probably should have been, they probably will go with 9, I would imagine, but I did go with 8 too.
The only thing I'll say about 8 versus 9, there have been games, I'm thinking of the one in Houston 2 years ago, where I think the Saints had 3 offensive line injuries in the same game. So if you only have 8 active, that's literally everybody.
Well, but there's going to be one. There's going to be one healthy scratch.
Yeah.
Pretty much every game, just because of the was it 40, 45?
That's also true.
47 or
40, 46 game day.
7, right?
Whatever
It's
it
always
is.
it's like it used to be 7, but now it can be 5 because you can elevate 2 people from the practice squad, which screws with the numbers. It's all below.
Yeah, it's just like I think if they keep 9, there's going to be 1 inactive for every game. So you're still going into a game with 8 active offensive linemen.
Okay. So that's 21 as we continue the count here. Tight end. You kept 4.
I did. And I notably did not have Taysom Hill on this list, but because I think he's going to be still
IR.
injured.
Yeah, he'll be on
IR pup.
Yeah, the chance of him making the opening day 53
Yeah.
is not good.
Foster Moreau, do you think he'll start the year injured?
So if they start on IR, they miss the first 4 weeks, right?
Yeah. I mean, his injury was after Taysom Hill's, and
It was in the final game of the year. I would bet both of those guys start the year in IR.
Okay, I had Foster Moreau just because he's been around a lot. He seems optimistic, but that could also just be Foster Moreau's personality. That was one of the ones I had a tougher time with.
Yeah, the injuries are how you color this one. Like Foster said he would be ready for training camp right now. I don't know. Maybe, again, that's just him being optimistic. But if he is, he'll make the roster. The other guys you had were Juwan Johnson, Jack Stoll, who, at least in the minicamp practice I saw, was all over the place. And then Moliki Matavao, am I saying that right? The rookie
the
from
UCLA
UCLA.
tight end.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if Foster Moreau is healthy, 4.
Yeah.
Like if he's starting the season on the active roster or like on the active roster, but like not able to play until like week 3 or something like that, which is like a possibility. Then 4, if both of those guys are in IR, I don't know. Like, do you keep like Trayton Welch or Michael Jacobson just to have a 4th tight end?
No, I would probably do 3, and then I would keep an extra offensive lineman if both those guys are hurt. I do think they'll keep Mataval. There was one rookie I didn't include, and I'm still kind of kicking myself because I just think in the first year of like a new regime or a new coaching staff, like even though there are 9 draft picks here and that's a lot of players, like I feel like they're gonna lean toward keeping their guys.
Who was the one you didn't include?
Diggs later.
The defensive end. Yeah.
I thought it was another one you didn't include too.
That
Did you have Jonas on there?
Oh, they're
Yeah.
not cutting
Yeah.
Jonas.
No, I'm saying did he have him on his?
I think I did.
I don't think I did.
If he didn't, that's a
That's
That's
I need
an
to go back
oversight.
in and edit
I'm
that.
looking at it right now. No, I don't.
think
You don't have him on there.
I was shocked.
Matt.
We have to go back.
So I have to go back.
Oh,
and fix that.
Matt.
This published this morning, but maybe an edit in store.
I was going to ask you yesterday.
Yeah,
I said,
that
well,
should
maybe
have
he just
been,
didn't want him. I can stick him on my 53 and say, hey,
That's my bad. All right, sorry, Burgers.
All right. Sticking to the offensive line, or I'm sorry, sticking to the tight ends. Were you where were you on this?
I had kind of the same. I did have a Dallin Holker on mine because I'm just such a fan of his as well. So he's probably not going to be on the team. But,
Even though he cut the hair?
Yeah, that might.
Was that the source of his power?
Yeah.
Is Dallin Holker a cut? Are we all thinking that, except for Rod, who's just hoping against hope?
I mean, I don't know. Like,
I just had him over the rookie. I just thought he'd have a better.
I think of the other, like, if you're looking for another receiving option at tight end, like, I think he's clearly the second best one on the roster behind Juwan. But that's just based off of, it's based off of college and training camp last year. It's not based off of anything else. He didn't really do anything in the games. And we haven't seen much of him in the offseason program. So, but I think he gives you more as a receiver than Stoll or Matavao or Trayton Welch or whatever. But like his spot feels like very, very tenuous, and it really just depends on what they want. If they want like big-bodied people movers out there behind Juwan, then you keep Matavao and Stoll.
Yeah, and for a team that wants to run the ball, right? Like we may see that. Now, if Taysom and or Foster start the year on IR, that obviously opens up another spot in the meantime, and maybe one of these guys hangs around at least to open the season. All right, so that is the offense. We are at 25 players. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back and continue our 53-man roster projection on the Saints Insider right after this.
There's no better place to parlay than Caesars Sportsbook. With quick picks, you can tap right into pre-built, ready-to-bet parlays right from the home screen. And if you miss tip-off, no worries. You can play same-game parlays live during the action. Plus, it's never been easier to find and bet on the biggest matchups of the day, so you can keep up with all the action. Caesars Sportsbook, proud partner of the NBA and the only sportsbook app with Caesars Rewards. Download it today.
Welcome back to the Saints Insider. Going through a 53-man roster projection, post minicamp, before training camp. Going to change a lot, but we've got 25 names on offense. We're going to go 25 names on defense and then leave 3 for the specialists. And we've already noticed one mistake. We'll get to that. It's all right. Start with edge rushers. Do we do edge rushers or defensive linemen first?
I combined them in the first.
Yeah.
I combined them into 10.
Let's do D linemen first. We'll do D linemen first. So in a 3-4 defense, we're talking about, the guys with their hands in the dirt, their hands in the rubber, essentially. This is where there's kind of a logjam. Like, if you don't even count Brian Brzee, who we think will probably move out to end, I don't know, is probably the right word? Probably?
Yeah.
I mean, they're going to keep him regardless. But just guys we know are probably like nose tackle candidates. You have Devon Godshaw, you have Vernon Broughton, the draft pick, and then you have Nathan Shepard, Colin Saunders coming back. This of John Ridgway. Like, you've got a lot of guys there who are not all going to make the team.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, but like I think that's okay. I mean, no disrespect to any of those guys. It's just like a logjam of kind of like the same players, right?
None of them are special. We don't know about Vernon Broughton yet, but
yeah, I mean, Broughton's going to make the team. There's no doubt in my mind about that. But like I think he and Brazier, you're kind of looking at as your like 3-4 ends. So that leaves with 3 of those guys on the interior. You're probably going to keep. So that's Godshaw, I think, is going to be on the team. And I think probably Shepard and Saunders.
What about Jonah Williams?
Yeah, I think so.
Jonah Williams is a guy who could probably play on the
He's been involved like all over the place.
Yeah. I just like I don't know. I think they keep 3 interior players. Not counting Brzee as one of those, and I think 2 end players. But I don't know. You're starting to get into like kind of some of the weird dynamics with like the 3-4 and how different it is versus what they have been running. I think that is one of the trickier ones in the roster when it comes to figuring out who stays and who goes.
Matt, the 6 you had were Brzee, Godshaw, Broughton, Saunders, Shepard, and then you added Jonah Williams.
Yeah, I mean, like John Ridgway and Christian Boyd are your kind of run-stuffing defensive tackles, but because you traded for Godshaw, you drafted Broughton, I thought that, they could be a little bit more expendable. The toughest one I had a tough time with is keeping Shepard and Saunders. I didn't know whether I should swap that out, but they both redid their contracts, which makes the cap implications of moving on from them a little bit more tricky. Shepard hadn't been around through the OTAs, but I mean, neither was JT Gray, and we're not saying JT Gray's in danger of missing the roster. Like, I just think Shepard can still be a contributor. And, I didn't know whether to keep 6, defensive linemen. I only kept 4 edge rushers. Maybe you swap one of those guys out for another edge rusher. I think there is some flexibility here, and it was this is what I need training camp for. I'll have a better idea after training camp.
I'd probably go 5 and 5.
Yeah, the lines are hard because we haven't seen them actually line up in pads and hit each other. To me, this was the position where I kept thinking, to your point, way back when the offseason began, they were going to cut Shepard or cut Saunders. I mean, those were obvious salary cap relief candidates, and they didn't do that. And then they added bodies. They added Broughton in the draft. They brought in Devon Godshaw. They still have John Ridgway hanging around. It just seems like they got a whole bunch of bodies here. Rod, what did you do here?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of looked at Matt's and I did use 6 on that one, but and I only have 4 edge rushes too, which I think they probably will end up with 5. I don't think 4 is going to be enough. So, and I actually had the exact same 6 that he had.
Okay.
I mean, to me, Jonah Williams is kind of the wild card. I just kind of stuck him on there, but I don't know if he'll be on there. So
yeah, I mean,
but 6 is a lot
because I think Broughton and Brzee are going to be their base ends,
right?
But are they going to be the only ones? Because I think they keep 3 interior guys.
Right.
And Brzee, if they're in like a sub formation, is probably going to switch back to playing some 3 technique there.
Yeah. So you probably need another 3-4 in.
If it's only 5, which of these guys is not making it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's do you keep?
So I just don't know if you keep
both
Colin and Shepard, man.
Because I think Godshaw's going to make the team. I think he gives them a physical presence that knows that none of the other guys do. Yeah. Does that mean you cut one of Shepard and Saunders to keep Williams?
One of those 3, I think. One of those 3, I think, is
it's one of those 3.
Yeah. Unless they keep 6. But you're getting into a numbers question.
Right, and that will lead us right into edge rusher, which, Matt, you have 4. Chase Young, Carl Granderson, we know they'll make the team. Cam Jordan, he's not going to go anywhere. And then the 4th you have is Isaiah Foskey. And he's kind of, again, has done nothing since being a second-round pick in 2022? 2020.
2023.
2023. Yeah. Yes, it's only been 2 years, and he was a second-round pick. Can't seem to get on the field either because of injury, because he hasn't been effective. So you think, he's an obvious cut candidate, but the Saints also don't have a ton of bodies here to put on the active roster.
Yeah, he's the one that he was involved in the spring. We saw him taking 7-on-7 reps. It feels like they're giving him a chance. He's definitely going to need the chance. He's going to have to show some sort of production. There are 2 other guys I considered for edge rusher that I think actually have maybe a good shot of making it. One is obviously the rookie from Syracuse, Fidel Diggs. Good traits, strong production in college, even though he's a 7th-round pick. I just kind of like his profile as a player, and hopefully he has a strong training camp and can make it. The other guy is Chris Rumpf, veteran, but has a lot of experience with Staley. He's kind of a solid rotational pass rusher. Everyone kind of needs that type of player on your roster, a guy who can get you 3.5, 4 sacks a year. Just come in, play 30% of the snaps. I feel like he could be that for them. And so I had Foskey just given the pedigree. I don't know if this front office wants to bail on him yet, but he's definitely a prove-it guy for me.
Same for me. I had Foskey just kind of by default, but he could very easily lose his job if he doesn't have a good camp.
He's got to show something.
Yeah, he's got.
Yeah, I mean, like I think I might be out on Foskey.
Yeah,
I think I'd keep 5, and it would be Diggs and Rumpf would be the other 2.
So you're cutting
you're already
Foskey
out on
and keeping both of those.
Yeah, yeah. And look, I mean, we are talking about basically the depth pieces and planning for the future. And I think Diggs seems like a guy who would be like kind of a red shirt type candidate who's not active very often on game day, and Rumpf is the other one who's up because he's shown he can do it and he's proven it. I just like there's certainly a chance that Foskey shows he can do something in this new defense, and it's more suiting for his skill set. But it's been 2 years. We haven't seen it in training camp practices. We haven't seen it in games. Like I just think he just might not be it for this level.
All right, at a linebacker in the 3-4, we're really talking about middle linebackers here, which they're of course in a base D. There'll be 2 on the field. Your starters: Demario Davis, Pete Werner. Then the rookie Danny Stutzman, Nephi Sewell, and DeMarco Jackson. You kept 5, Matt. There's also big time special teams implications here as well.
Yeah, Jalen Ford's another player that could easily make this roster because of special teams. 5th round pick from a year ago. Then it had a really up and down rookie season, more down than up. This is a spot that I've considered just giving 4 because, like, do you really need 5 inside linebackers when you have positions elsewhere? That's where I looked at the history, and Brandon Staley has always kept 5 inside linebackers. Now, obviously, he's not the head coach, but I'm sure he'll have a say, and I just think they're going to go with 5.
Yeah, I agree, and I think the core special teams aspect is a big part of this. Linebackers play a lot of special teams. Nephi Sewell has been a core special teamer for him. Jalen Ford,
DeMarco Jackson has too. Yeah.
DeMarco Jackson has too. Jalen Ford is somebody who played a lot of special teams in college. So, like, I think the 3 that are obviously going to make the team are the 2 starters and Stutzman, and then I think the other 2, it's going to come down to who performs better on special teams. And like Nephi has like a long-standing relationship with Phil Galliano. They really like him in that role. I think he feels pretty solid for me as a special teams depth player. And then the other one's going to come down to Jackson and Ford for me.
For me, this was like out of all the positions, I thought this was probably the easiest one for me. And I went with the 5. I mean, with DeMarco and Nephi as the other 2 guys behind Demario Stutzman and Pete Werner, but I just thought that one was pretty sad. But I do think there's a way that Ford can make his way.
It's Jackson or Ford at the end, I think, for that last. That's one of those, who's the 53rd guy who's on the practice squad. Could change week to week. All right, the secondary. And we kind of group this together. You have 5 corners and 5 safeties. Some of these guys, Ugo Amadi's a little bit interchangeable. Obviously, this is where the Jonas Sanker thing comes in. We need to put Sanker in there.
I have since fixed that.
Yeah.
By the time you are reading that, I did that in the chair just now in blocks.
So if you can find a copy of the story that still has Terrell Burgess on there, it's like a baseball card with an error. It's worth millions of dollars now.
Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, the Steve McNair rookie card I have with him in a Vikings helmet isn't worth a lot of money. It's really weird.
Anybody got a Billy Ripken? I can't say the word on TV.
No.
He's got it written on his knob of his bat. If you know, you know. Okay. Back on topic, Matt. Versatility, I think, plays a big role here.
Yeah, it does. And it's just about what they value. Do they want, like, how many outside cornerbacks do they want versus nickel? Special teams is another component. JT Gray is a perennial, like, all-pro type of player for special teams. You have your 2 starters. Now, if you really wanted, I don't think it's going to happen, but if you told me, like, give me your most surprising cut candidate.
Oh, baby. I know where you're going.
And I don't think it's going to happen. I want to make that clear. But is Tyrann Mathieu a lock to make this roster?
I think he is.
Yes.
I know where you're going. I know why you're going there. I appreciate the dots are connecting, but I don't think there's any way.
Yeah,
If he wasn't like local legend Tyrann Mathieu, maybe.
Yeah, guys miss mandatory minicamp all the time, but or like not mandatory, like the OTA sessions. But for him to come back and like be working with the twos, and like he was on a pitch count for some reason, I got a weird vibe from that, and that made me start to wonder what's going on here. But maybe it's just a weird vibe, and they'll sort it out all through training camp. But I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think
he's going to make it. To be clear,
it would be a shocking move. I don't think it'd be like. I don't think it's completely out of the realm of possibility, but it would be shocking.
Who are your starters then? Reed and
Matthew.
No, but I mean, if Matthew gets cut.
Oh, Jordan Howden.
Howden, okay, not Sanker.
Yeah, no,
Howden
Howden
on the team. So.
Matt already cut him.
Since Hervise. See, this is why teams have front office.
You got checks and balances, just like we do here.
Kai Harley and Michael Parrington
on the Saints Insider. Who did you have, Matt? You Sanker for Burgess, but otherwise the same as Matt's list?
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
I got excited when I saw he left Sanker off. I was like, oh, yeah, I got Matt on this.
Here we got a talking point.
No, that was a brain fart,
that was an oversight.
Yeah. Reed, Matthew, Sanker, JT Gray,
and Howden.
And Jordan Howden are my 5.
And then 5 corners, pretty obvious. Taylor, McKinstry, Riley, Ike Yadam, Ugo Amadi.
Yeah, well, Amadi over Rico Payton?
Yeah,
I toyed with that a little bit too.
I think I would probably I'd probably keep Rico Payton in that. I think he's shown some flashes of being a very good special teamer.
You say Rico over Amadi?
Yeah.
Yeah. I just felt like I noticed Amadi doing a lot more on like defense.
But again, this is like that is very much a position where they could still add to it and probably will before the start of the season.
Yeah, but I mean, this might be the most likely position for them to add, I would think. We don't know what Asante Samuel is. Early July, they said he's getting his medical checkup, so he's definitely a name to look out for. And are they going to spend all of their money? Maybe not all of it, but it sure feels like they're going to spend some of it here.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, that's 50. That leaves 3 specialists: kicker, punter, long snapper. I guess. I mean, Matt, you just said the 3 starters from last year.
Yeah.
Zach Woods locked in. Blake Grupe. I don't see how. Like, I know everybody loves Charlie Smith. I love Charlie Smith. How can you get rid of Blake Grupe after the season he had? And that leaves punter. So either the incumbent kicker or punter, are they in danger? That's the question here.
Yeah. James Burnip looked pretty good the other day. So did Charlie Smith. I just the Saints punter has lost their job in training camp 2 years in a row. For it to happen a third kind of feels. I mean, it could, but
why can't they find a good punter?
I don't know.
What is going on
fine.
here?
Besides the Giants game when he just got absolutely dog cussed at midfield, he was fine. Besides that, I went chalk here. I just think it's going to be a consistency thing, and I don't know. I'm open to change.
Any disagreements from you guys?
No, I think that's how it's going to play out. I think it would have to be like Charlie Smith would have to have just like an electric training camp. It would have to be really, really consistent, plus the big leg that he's shown throughout his time with New Orleans. Because Grupe's just been really good. Like, I think you can count on him. Mm-hmm. And that is something that is like a desperately sought after thing in the NFL. Like, do you have a kicker you can count on? And I think Grupe's shown he can be that over the last year plus. He was, I think, 27 to 31 last year. He did miss 2 extra points. One of them might have been blocked. But otherwise, I mean, really, really, really solid. And I think if you're going into a season with Charlie Smith, you have to kind of assuage those concerns of him being inconsistent because he's still so young into this professional football thing.
This offense can't be leaving points on the board, man. You get,
right.
If you get in a position for 3, you better be getting 3.
The Ravens signed Jair Alexander, by the way, so he's off the breaking news.
I'm curious what the anybody know the terms on that?
This is happening live as we record here. Ravens
no
signed Jair Alexander, who we talked about this in last week's pod. Like, I don't know that he was ever a super realistic candidate for the Saints. I think Samuel's probably much more likely for them.
Yes.
So, okay, we're going to wrap things up here. That's our 53-man roster projection mid-June edition. We're going to be a lot different by mid-August and certainly by the end of August when this thing has to be finalized. So Stay tuned for that. We're going to have more episodes for you over the next couple of weeks while we all kind of peel off and take vacation. So if there's some huge piece of news that happens and we're not talking about it on the podcast, that's why, because those are all pre-recorded before we're going off to various locations around the world. So we'll see you on the flip side. For Rod Walker, Luke Johnson, and Matthew Paris, our producer was Norman Bell. I'm Zach Ewing, and we'll see you next time on the Saints Insider.